Hello, everyone, and welcome to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm your host, Nipasa Pradhan. And before we dive into today's webinar, I have this very important disclaimer. And that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. So, welcome back once again, friends, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. And I'm really thrilled to have all of you join us, whether you have joined us on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Thank you so much. And today's topic is one that many of you have been probably very eagerly waiting for. Yes, it's about the November Visa Bulletin, and we're going to discuss what's moving and what's stuck. And as we know it, Visa Bulletin serves as a roadmap for thousands of immigrants hoping to secure their next steps towards lawful permanent residency in the United States. So this month's bulletin has brought some interesting changes and some real stuck-up situations as well. But all of that will be discussed today with our guest. So I'm really honored to have with us today our guest, none other than Attorney Prashanthi Reddy. Thank you so much for joining us, Prashanthi, once again. Really good to have you.
Good to be here.
Absolutely. And folks out there, if you've joined us for the first time, this is Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, a highly respected immigration attorney and an expert in business immigration, who will guide us through the intricacies of the bulletin today. And we'll cover the key insights, probably decode the movements if there are any. And yes, we are also very excited to have you folks take part in today's webinar by asking whatever questions you have. So all you have to do is comment and yes, ask us, and it'll be very nice because we always have time for our audience's questions. So yes, please feel free to drop the questions in the chat, and we will try to answer as many as possible today. And I think without further ado, let's dive in, Prashanthi, and welcome once again. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm excited for today's webinar.
So am I.
Anything you want to say before we start off about today's topic and what can folks out there expect from this webinar today?
Yeah, so we'll talk about, of course, we'll talk about the movement in the visa bulletin, what has changed, what has remained static,
Statics,
if
yes.
anything has retrogressed. Nowadays, no news is good news with the visa bulletin. Um, Also, maybe a little bit about what is a visa bulletin, some basics, maybe in Nipasa, what is a visa bulletin? What are the tables to look at, right? Different types of tables and how they calculate, the number of
True.
visas available. So we can go through, a few of those basics as well.
Absolutely. So let's start off then. What is a visa bulletin and what are the different categories that a visa bulletin displays every month that it comes out?
So a visa bulletin is published by the Department of State. And if you want to file for a green card, every year a limited number of immigrant visas available or green cards are available. So there are only 140,000 visas given every year. And out of that 140,000, 7% are given to each country because they want to make sure that one country doesn't monopolize all the visas.
Mhm.
India would and China would if there was no per country limit. So they did put a per country limit of 7%. So out of that total number, 7% only can be used by each country. So that's about 2,800 or something around that number that each country gets. So Indian nationals will get about 2,500 to 2,800 green cards every year. So obviously, if there are more applications filed, then people will not get their green card. So that's what the priority dates is about. That's what the visa bulletin is about. The visa bulletin tells you when you can file for a green card and when your number becomes available because there is a backlog. Because as I said, there are about 2,500 odd or 2,800 odd green card numbers for every country, and India and China far exceed that
Mhm.
number in terms of applications. So if
Absolutely.
you go to the Department of State and you go to travel.gov and you go to the visa bulletin, you will see a placeholder. and tables. And if your priority date with reference to your particular category has passed or has reached that date on the table, then you can go and file your 485. So each month, the US Department of State calculates how many applicants are waiting in each category, and
Mhm.
helps them estimate when different applicants might be able to move forward. So they keep moving the dates forward, or they keep them at a standstill, or maybe they even retrogress them if if retrogression is needed.
Right.
So there are two tables in the visa bulletin. One is the dates filing, and one is the final action date table. And the dates for filing is the dates listed in the visa bulletin. If your priority date is on or before the cutoff date listed for your category, you can take the next step in under dates for filing, and you can file your 485. So you're able to file your 485 ahead of time. They're allowing you to file it ahead of time so that they take into consideration the processing time, which is about a year, 12 months to 14 months. And
Mhm.
the hope is that by the time the case is processed, your date will become available. So that's the general how they kind of make a guess on what the dates of filing might be. The other
All right.
table is the final action date table. This is an estimate of when your priority date is actually available and when you can actually get the green card. So if you file based on the final action date table, you can expect to get the green card as soon as your case is processed. The difference between, as I said, the two dates, the final action date and the dates for filing, is roughly the expected USCIS processing time, right? So once your dates become available, whether it be through dates of filing or final action date, and one more thing quickly before we move on is how do you decide which table to look at? Usually in the beginning of the fiscal year began this month, October. It's October
Mhm.
to October. So in the beginning of the fiscal year, usually the Department of State will allow you to use dates for filing, which is a good thing because usually the dates for filing table is ahead of the final action date table by a few days or a few months or sometimes a few years as well. So at least you're able to file your 485, and at least you have a 485 pending, which really helps because then you don't have to be on a non-immigrant H-1B visa or a L-1 visa. You can be on a 485 status, which allows EAD, which is employment, and allows you advance parole, which is like a visa. So you don't have
Mhm.
to go to the consulate for a visa. So there are a lot of advantages of being in a pending 485 status.
All right.
Um, and then once your visa numbers become available, your priority date becomes available, there are two ways you can move forward to file for your green card. As I said, you can file for a 485, which is an adjustment of status, and get all these benefits. Or if you're living outside the US, then you can apply for an immigrant visa. If you're living outside the US, usually the dates for filing chart cannot be used. You'll only be using the final action dates. So if you're outside, you'll file for an immigrant visa petition through the NVC. So that's a little bit about what a visa bulletin is, what are the two tables, and when you can file for your green card based on the visa bulletin.
Thank you so much, Prashanthi, for helping us understand the visa bulletin better. And you've already explained how the final action dates and the date for filing applications work. That was actually going to be my next question. But if you can just elaborate a little bit and tell us, the two dates, the final action dates and the dates for filing applications, how does this impact the visa application process, particularly for Indian nationals? I think
Right.
for all.
Right. So the dates, as I was saying, we already know what the dates for filing is. We're allowed to file in advance. And this really helps Indian nationals because of the backlog that Indian nationals are facing. So as long as they're able to get their application in, there are many benefits, even if they don't ultimately get the green card immediately and then there is a wait for their priority date to become available. Still,
Mhm.
this thing that they did with reference to the two tables, the dates for filing table and the final action date, the dates for filing, as I said, helps you file your green card in advance before the numbers actually become, your priority date actually becomes available. So this helps in several ways. Number one, it helps you by filing. You can file along with your 485, you can file the EAD application. And remember, if you have an EAD application, your spouse also can file for an EAD. So now your spouse can work for any employer. And technically, if certain requirements are met, you can also work for any employer, and you can easily transfer your 485 to another employer. If 6 months is over from the date of filing and your I-140 is approved, then you have a lot of flexibility with reference to moving employers. And you can work for any similar job in the US without filing an application. It's just simply a matter of filling out a simple 485J form and sending it out to USCIS. And there's no fee involved also. So it becomes much, much easier and flexible. There's a flexibility for changing jobs. Your dependents can work. You can travel on advance parole without having to go for a visa and getting stuck outside the country because you're applying for an advance parole while you're in the country. Um, for EAD, as I was saying, they've extended EAD, automatically extended your EAD, even if it expires, it's automatically extended now to account for the processing delays for EADs. And most importantly, if your children are aging out, then if you file, even as per the new rule, even if you file under the dates for filing category and you have a 485 now pending, your child's age is frozen. So before that, it was only applicable, the freezing of the age was only applicable if you filed a 485 based on final action dates. Now, freezing of child's age can happen even if you file based on dates for filing. So there's a huge advantage having this new category of dates for filing.
All right. Thank you so much, Prashanti, for helping us understand and for, telling us about, I mean, particularly for Indian nationals, about the final action dates and dates for filing applications. Thank you so much.
You're
Now, let's
welcome.
move on to this next question I have. This is about family sponsored visa movement. So, how significant are the movements in family sponsored visa categories for India in the November visa bulletin? And do you foresee any improvements in the coming months? I mean, not much dates have changed in the entire bulletin. So, can we expect any changes coming up?
So the main changes have occurred in the family-based category. Just to give you an overview, under the F1 category, that is unmarried children of US citizens, uh, who are 21, who are not minors, but who are majors, so F1. Um, for Mexico, it's moved by 6 months. Um, India, no change. F2A, spouses and unmarried children of US green card holders, F2A, no change at all for India or other countries as well. F2B, unmarried children of US green card holders who are 21 years or older. Again, for Mexico, there's 11-month change. No change for India or any other countries. For married children of US citizens, F3, there is a change for India. There's a forward movement by 6 months. China, forward movement by 6 months, and all other countries also there's a forward movement by 6 months. So overall, F3 category has done well. Married children of US citizens has done well in this upcoming visa bulletin. And last but not the least, siblings of US citizens, F4 category, the one that is always the most backlogged. They are working on 2006 cases for India. Um, the change is 1 month and 2 weeks for India. It moved forward, and for the Philippines, it moved forward by 11 months and 1 week. So, those are the changes for in the family-based category.
Oh my, barely any for India. I mean, it's 1 month only, but it's crazy. I mean, there's so much backlogs for India and China, especially. Anyway, quickly, I would like to say hi to our folks out there. Thank you so much for joining us and for watching. If you have any questions, please drop them. And Big hello to Rekha and Akshay for your questions also. Thank you so much. Stay around because we will be taking up your questions very, very soon. All right. So next, I have another question, Prashanti, and this is regarding employment-based categories. So challenges and opportunities with limited progress in EB1, EB2, and EB3 categories for India. What strategy should applicants consider to stay prepared and optimize their chances?
Yeah, that's tough because we can't give any real advice, but I'll try. Um, if your visa number is not available in your category that you're presently in, try to change your category. Maybe you qualify under EB3, you have an I-140 approved under EB3, but maybe you qualify now under EB2 because you got a master's degree, or now you have more experience. You have 5 years of experience, so you might qualify for EB2. So I would suggest then look into that and maybe file, a new labor cert in I-140, or only an I-140 if that's what's required, under a better category. If you look at EB2 for India, it's 2013. Um, and EB3 is also 2013. So there is really not much, but a difference by a few months, January versus June. EB2 being slightly better, 6 months better than EB3. So, if you qualify for a better category in your immigrant visa petition, then you would file for that. EB1 is always does the best. It's current for all other countries, but for including China is almost current. It's 2023, but India is not too bad. India is always the most backlog country for the numbers because of the high demand. But in India, it's April 2022. So that's not too bad, a 2 year backlog, and that could change, and it does move forward. EB1 is likely to move forward more than EB2 or EB3. So if you could qualify for EB1 is extraordinary ability, outstanding researchers and professors, multinational executives and managers. So that's the EB1 category. So if you think you fall under any of those, you're most likely, if you're average like me, and you're not extraordinary, then or if you are, then you could try to file under multinational executive. That's the L1A category. It could be that you're in a managerial level position in your company, and if your company has an office abroad, and if you have worked there for a year, within 1 year, within the last 3 years, and you're coming to work in the US, you could apply for, a green card, EB1, based on multinational executive. That is, you have to prove that you are supervising other employees, that you're actually working as an executive or a manager, not just in namesake. And not just by duties, but you also have to submit documentation to show that you are working in an executive level position. So EB1 is definitely something to look into. Also, outstanding researchers. You don't necessarily have to be extraordinary, but you should have done some exemplary research. So if you're a PhD and you have 10 publications, say, in a certain field of interest, then it's quite possible that you might qualify for, and under the researcher category. So I would definitely look into that. Then there's always the EB5, which is the investor visa. The EB5 is also backlogged, but it's again 2022. So you could look into that if you're an Indian national invest. But I must tell you, EB5 processing time is so long that that kind of negates the whole purpose of the EB5. They're taking about 4 years to process the petition, but it still might make sense if you don't qualify for the L1. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to invest in the US, to convert yourself into an EB5, even if you're on an H1, that's possible. Maybe you can be a passive investor in a regional center if you don't want to actually do a business. Or you can invest in a business that is being run by someone else, right? And then qualify for EB5. So I think those are a few of the tips. And of course, family based is always the best option. Immediate relatives, US citizen spouses, parents, children. If your children are born here and they're over 21, you're in luck now because they can sponsor you, and it's an immigrant. And that's what might happen with all the employment-based cases, because it's
Mhm.
taking so long for them to get it through the employment base. They might just have to wait until their children turn 21 and file for them. So those are a
True.
few ways, to maybe circumvent these, unavailability. But also another way is advocacy. You know, um, elections are coming up. Choose the candidates that are most likely to help you, and do your research. Don't just go based on what they say, but based on what they actually do, or what they have done in the past, right?
Mhm.
So choose a candidate that will likely take these. There are a lot of bills that have been introduced, and we'll talk about that next. But a lot of bills have been introduced in the legislature for changing the way immigrant visas are looked at, increasing the numbers, blah, 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 removing country caps. But none of them have actually passed because there's no majority. Democrats don't have the majority, and some of these bills are bipartisan. So,
Mhm.
advocacy is a big thing, and has a big part to play in this as well. Because some change has to take place in the law, ultimately. And that's the only way that there will be a solution.
Absolutely. We cannot expect new changes unless there is something different going on. If everything stays the same, we cannot expect changes for sure. So,
Correct.
thank you so much, Prashanthi, for guiding us through the employment-based categories also. Now I have this next question, but I think before we move to that, let's take up a few questions from our audience. They've been waiting a bit, and let's take up Akshay's one quickly. Akshay is asking, can we apply for NIW while on F1 as an Indian national? What would be the implications on travel outside the country if there are any emergencies?
Right. If you have an I-140 approved, then that might impact your F1. Though they have said that they will take that into consideration, and it might impact it less than it used to impact it. So the main
Mhm.
impact is if you're traveling and you um, are trying to come back on an F1. The F1, as you know, has an intent to immigrate problem, which means that you cannot have a dual intent.
Mhm.
So if you file an I-140, or actually even if you have an I-140 approved, maybe more so, then that shows that you have the intent to immigrate. So they may stop you at the border, at CBP might stop you, or if you're going to apply for a visa, they might stop you at the consulate. But it seems that they've become more liberal with this interpretation. But again, who's to say what that is? So they can easily stop you if they really wanted to.
Right. Thank you, Akshay, for your question. There's actually another question Akshay is asking, or is it a statement? EB to India will be January 2014 in the next 12 years, he says. What do you have to say about that, Prashanthi?
In the next, so he's saying that it'll move by 2 years in the next 12 years. Yeah, I mean, unless something changes, then it might shoot up, move up very rapidly suddenly. If there's some changes, something happens. That's happened 2 or 3 times in my practice since I started practicing, which is about almost 30 years. It's
Oh,
happened
yeah?
about 3 times where something significant has happened. Recently, it's been COVID, but something happened, and the priority dates suddenly shot up, advanced very rapidly.
Hmm.
So you never know, that can happen. I'm hoping some legislative change will happen before that, or at least some executive order can be passed, where the government can do something without any need for a new law to be passed. So let's wait and see. But yeah, if it continues the way it is, It's not like the visa numbers move every month. They don't.
Mhm.
They just stuck there for months together.
Yes.
And even if there is movement, it's like a month, 2 months sometimes, a few weeks sometimes. So, yeah, we're not seeing very significant forward movement.
Right. When was the last time you actually saw, like, apart from COVID, like the dates really moved forward, for India or China?
I don't remember. I think it was in 2014. I don't remember the date exactly now if you ask me, but there was, um, I think it might have been in 2000, not six, but yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but maybe 2010. I'm just
Hmm.
guessing at this point.
But very, very long time ago. I mean, more
A
than a
long time
decade.
ago. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
All right. Thank you. Moving on, let's take up RK's question. Let's see what he has to ask. Okay, he's a little concerned, asking why haven't they told us the employment based annual limit for fiscal year 2025? Will it be for 140K?
Yeah, so you only know that towards the end of the fiscal year. So you know what it was for the previous fiscal year. You only got to know that later because they have to, the 140K is the basic minimum that they have. And as I
Mhm.
said, out of that, you get 7%. So that's, 2,800 or something like that, 7% of 140K. Um, but then there is, the trickle down effect. So if you are EB3, then you will get the trickle down. If they're unused worldwide numbers for EB2, then you will get that, and EB1. If you're EB2, then you will get the unused numbers not used for EB1 worldwide.
Mhm.
So they obviously they have to see first what is used and what is unused, and they'll only know that towards the end of the fiscal year, and that's when
Mhm.
they make more numbers available, or as time progresses. Um, so, for example, even though Indian nationals can get only say 2,800 visa numbers, they've in the past they have received 10,000 visa numbers, like in the
Right.
previous years, 8,000 visa numbers. That's the result of the trickling down from the other categories which have not been used. For
Okay.
EB1 also you have the trickle. You have now going up the EB4 and EB5 categories. Visa numbers not used go up to the EB1. So that's how it
Mhm.
works. And
Okay.
unless they have a proper understanding of how many visas are going to be used in the different categories and also worldwide, they can't add to the 140,000 basic number of green card green cards available.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you so much, RK, for your question, and also Prashanti for taking it up. We have another from Akshay, so let's take it up because it's a follow up. He says, we need another COVID situation or
I
some
hope not.
change in the law for priority dates in EV2 to move very rapidly. Just need to see the chances of both happening.
Yeah, we shouldn't leave this to, yeah, we shouldn't leave this to chance and something bad happening, right, Akshay? Uh, so I think legislative change is the way, this is the only way I see really. Unless, you guys all want to marry US citizens. But this is the only way forward. Or as I said, you're patient and you wait until your kids turn 21. I think legislative change is the only way forward.
Hmm. Today we are laughing about COVID, but I mean, the situation we had back in
Uh,
2019, 2020, we were really scared. I mean, anything could happen. I was literally worried if we would ever get to go out or even travel. And see, now
correct.
again, our hopes up. Thank you. Thank you, Akshay, for commenting, but hope not COVID for sure. Anyway, let's get back to our questions again. I have this next one, and this is about the impact of country caps on visa delays. So, how do per country limits affect applicants from countries like India? And are there any ongoing legislative efforts to address this issue?
Yeah, so obviously per country caps affect India, and we know that it's quite obvious that uh, if you look at the backlog and the retrogression, India with so much population gets only 7%, and Iceland, which has a few thousand population, gets
Mm,
7%. So they never get to use up their quota. And yes, it's true that it does, they don't waste any of the numbers and it does trickle down to finally to Indian nationals, but even that is not enough.
mhm.
Backlog is several hundred thousand, and if you have 10,000, even 10,000 numbers available for Indian nationals, that's not enough. And that's why you're seeing priority dates numbers in 2012, which is like 12 years, and with no hope of, significant forward movement. Yeah, so that definitely, uh, I understand why you have country caps because you don't want one country to monopolize all the green cards. I get it. But again, if there has to be something more than a just blind 7%,
Yes, something proportionate.
availability. It has to be somewhat proportionate, or it has to be done in a different way if you want
Mhm.
to maintain diversity. So this disproportionately, the fact that 7% is available for large countries disproportionately affects, uh, you know,
It
India
does.
and China when compared to other countries. So a national from another country who's just come into the country can most probably get a green card because the dates are current. They can get a
Mhm,
green card within a year. An Indian national cannot, or a Chinese national cannot get a green card even in the next 20 years. So
mhm.
that's how country caps affect high demand countries. Um, so that's the retrogression we're talking about. And this affects both employment based as well as family based categories. We've seen how the brother sister category is like 2006, and some other family based categories are so backlogged as well that
Yes,
families are being separated because of that.
it's true.
um, so there have been different legislative efforts and various bills that have been introduced but have
Mhm.
not been passed. And they have focused on different things. And then let me just go through what the focus has been. One has been increase the green card numbers. So there's been a bill that has said that we should increase the numbers from 7% to 15%, for example.
Mhm,
I mean, increase the numbers, yeah, double the number of green cards that can be issued in a year.
mhm.
That will definitely help some of the backlogs, at least reduce the backlog by 50%, right? Some bills have suggested abolishing the country cap entirely or increasing it to allow for more equitable distribution, of visas across the country, what we were just talking about. There's also talk about recapturing unused visa numbers over the years. So in previously, in the 1990s, after the Immigration and Nationality Act came into play, there was no backlog of green cards. So a lot of visas were in fact not used. So there may be thousands of visas that haven't been used. So recapturing those unused visa numbers is something that they can do, which is permitted, can be permitted with an executive order. I'm thinking it doesn't even require a law to be passed. So we can
Mhm.
overcome this deadlock that is there in the legislative body by, executive orders. And this is one of the things that can be, this is how it can be done, using recapturing unused visa numbers and flooding it with new numbers so that, at least some of the backlogs can be reduced.
Absolutely,
Another,
because yes.
yeah, another is backlog elimination, Green Card Backlog Elimination Act. This type of legislation aims to address backlogs by providing a pathway for individuals in line for green cards, often by reallocating unused visas. Again, so people who have been waiting longer obviously should get the benefit. Uh, Say, open it up for people waiting for more than 5 years, etc. Something like that. Adjustment of status, to adjust their status to that of law, especially those on a work visa, to make it easier for individuals to adjust status. So maybe allowing, like for example, they have the dates for filing table, which allows you to file adjustment ahead of time. Maybe they
Mhm.
should open that up for more people so that they can at least file for adjustment, and even if they're not getting the green card, they will be free of this restrictive H-1B visa, which is really difficult to maintain status. You can't run a business. There's a lot of things you can't do on a H-1B visa, right?
Right.
Um, Another initiative may be like having a specialized program, like having separate visas or separate green cards allocated to STEM workers or healthcare professionals, or workers that are really needed in the US and where there is shortage, like nurses, etc., and
Mhm.
expediting their green cards in some way. And some people are of the opinion just to scrap the present system that there is, and um, have like point-based system like Canada does. So
Okay.
that's one way of doing it. One proposal that has been put forward. Also, there is another proposal has been leaving the number availability to the states instead of making it a federal issue, making it a state issue, so that states can decide how much labor they need, and they can open up numbers based on the geography and based on high unemployment areas. They can open
Mhm.
up green card numbers there and do something creative that way, so that the labor shortage in America can be addressed. So these are some initiatives that have been put forward, and there have been combination of these initiatives. But a lot of organizations, ALA, National Immigration Forum, and other lobbies have lobbied for this. So there's been a lot of advocacy around it. Um, but public opinion is contentious. Uh, in U.S. politics, immigration is a big subject that's used by both parties in different ways. So there's a lot of partisan politics around it. So that's why not much has happened, because it's become a political subject.
So true, and the rest of us are suffering. But anyway,
Correct.
among all of these different bill proposals, do you have any that you are really fascinated with, or you think that this would really work? Anything,
Anything will
Prashanti,
work. Any of these bills will work. The
will
question
work.
is, will it be passed? So we have to wait and see. Anyway, elections are coming up now, and there'll
Yes.
most probably be new Senate elections also. So we don't know if what will happen then. If so if the Democrats come back to power, and if they are able to keep control of the House and the Senate for enough period of time, you might see some changes in immigration laws. Otherwise, you will not. That's pretty straightforward thing that I have to say.
Thank you, Prashanti. It's been a great discussion so far, folks. Today we are discussing about the November Visa Bulletin, and we're discussing about what's moving and what's stuck. And we will definitely speak further on this. But if you have maybe further questions, or you want to consult with Attorney Prashanti Reddy directly, why not give her a call and maybe even email her about yourself? So it'll be great. She's here for some more time. We are also here. So if you have any further questions, you can always keep dropping them in the comments. But just in case, here's her contact number. And you can call her on 212-354-1010. And her email address is prashanthi@readyesq.com. And definitely go visit www.readyesq.com to get to know more about Attorney Prashanthi Reddy and the law offices of Prashanthi Reddy. Don't go anywhere. We'll just go for a short break, and we'll be right back to speak more about November Visa Bulletin, only on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Welcome back once again, folks, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I am Nipasa Pradhan, and today we are having this amazing webinar with none other than Attorney Prashanthi Reddy from the law offices of Prashanthi Reddy, and we're discussing about the November Visa Bulletin on what's moving and what's stuck. And it's been so far so good. We've already taken up many questions from my side and also from yours. I hope you still have more questions. I can already see so many and I'm really excited to take up a few. So, Prashanthi, thank you so much for doing this. I hope you're ready to take up more questions.
Absolutely looking forward to it.
All right, so let's take up this next one. This is on YouTube. This is from MB. Hello, MB. Thank you for joining us. So, MB is asking, hello. I have an F1 petition priority date 2015. Do you think the visa bulletin will move forward anytime? So, I am from Jamaica.
So family based, I'm presuming, uh, and it's hard to tell. There has been some forward movement with family based cases in this recent visa bulletin. There might be further forward movement as well. Um, we have to wait and see, of course. Nobody can say for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we just have to wait and see.
All
But
right. A
there is
patient.
a chance. There is a chance of family-based cases moving forward, especially the F1 categories, which is obviously better than F4, because there is less demand compared to the other categories. That's why the priority dates are not, don't look as bad as the F4 and the F2A, etc. So we should wait and see. This is only the beginning of the fiscal year. I think there'll definitely be some forward movement before the end of the fiscal year for family-based, especially if you're not from India or China and you come under all other categories, there will be some forward movement.
So MB, we'll just have to be patient and keep an eye. Always keep checking the visa bulletins that come up every month, and let's hope for the best. Thank you for your question. Thank you for participating, and thank you, Prashanthi. Let's take up this next question. This is from Cavill on YouTube. F11, if I'm not mistaken, F11 visa category or F1 is, I think he means visa category. Priority date is June 2016. Documentarily qualified February 3rd, 2023. The country is Jamaica. When can I expect an interview?
I wish I had a looking glass where I could tell you when your priority date will become available. But yeah, once your priority date does become available, which could be a while. At least it's not as bad as employment-based cases in
Mhm.
India, but it's pretty bad. So um, once it becomes available, that's when you can expect an interview, not before, because they won't. Usually, they don't. NVC, what NVC does, as you know, is prepare all the documentation, get everything from you, and then they'll
Mhm.
send it to the consulate, to the U.S. consulate in Jamaica, and then the consulate will will keep your application until your priority date becomes available, and then will invite you for an interview only after the priority date becomes available. This could be 5 years, it could be longer. It's really hard to tell.
Well, Keval, we cannot really say exactly, but I think you'll just have to keep an eye and look out for it. But well, it's so nice to have you folks join us from Jamaica. MB, Keval, thank you for your questions. And we definitely have more questions. We will get to them. Sumit, and then our biochemistry. Rekha, stay with us. We are going to take up your questions. Um, but I wanted to talk about this EB3 other workers category, just to clarify a bit more. Since the EB3 other workers category shows the same priority date as regular EB3, what distinguishes these two categories in terms of processing, Prashanthi, if you can help us?
Well, EB3 is basically so EB3, regular EB3 is people where jobs require a bachelor's degree. If your job requires a bachelor's degree and you file your labor cert in that way, then that becomes EB3. EB3 other workers is if your job requires less than a bachelor's degree. So you're
Mhm.
requiring 2 years of experience, or you're requiring an associate degree, but not a bachelor's degree. So that's one category below. So that's how the categories work: EB1, EB2, EB3. That's how they try to kind of number the categories. So EB3
Okay.
other workers is pretty much has been the same as EB3 for a while, because I guess the demand is the same as EB3, whether you
Mhm.
have a bachelor's degree or not. A lot of IT people qualify under both EB3 other as well as EB3.
Mhm.
So that's why it's the same. So with reference to processing, it's pretty much the same. Once your priority date becomes available, you file a perm the same way that you would file a EB3 perm. As I said, if the job requires less than a bachelor's degree, it comes under other workers.
Mhm.
So when your perm gets approved, when you file an I-140, you have to mark EB3, and it comes under other worker category.
Okay.
Make sure you mark the right category, because then the I-140 will get denied, and then you'll have to refile it because you filled out the form wrong. You might get a chance to amend it, but sometimes they just deny it and then make you file the entire petition again. So you have to make sure you correctly fill out the form when you're doing the I-140. But otherwise, you just have to wait for your priority date to become available. Look at the Visa Bulletin for EB3 other, and then file your 485 when it does become available.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Prashanti, for taking that up. And well, we have more questions, so we should take this up. This next one is from our biochemistry on YouTube. What is the benefit of filing both NIW and EB1 applications for Indians?
So NIW, there is no benefit because the criteria is high, and you are in EB2. You're not in EB1. And you could be
Okay.
in EB2 if you're working for your employer, get your employer to file it. So the NIW is really only useful for people who don't have an employer,
Okay.
or who have an employer but they're not willing to file for you, because it's an EB2 category. And if
Mhm.
you qualify usually for NIW, you might also qualify for EB1, extraordinary ability or researcher category. So I would, and that has a huge, obviously, that's a huge advantage, EB1 category. So, and since the criteria is almost the same, um it's extraordinary versus exceptional, what is exceptional and what is extraordinary. They do have
A
uh,
fine line of.
guidelines. They have guidelines for it, but really it boils down to the officer that's looking at the case finally. So I would file for EB1
Mhm.
if you can, and file for EB2 if your employer is willing to support you rather than filing for NIW.
Okay. Okay, there you go. You have your answer, our biochemistry. Thank you for your question, and I hope that helps. Cavill says, "Thank you guys for your response. Thank you, Cavill, for your question as well." And MB had another additional information saying, "Sorry, I forgot to mention that the month is December 2015, and I'm also documentarily qualified." This was regarding the visa bulletin moving forward for F1 for Jamaica.
Right, right, right. I think our answer, thanks for the additional information, but the answer remains the same. It's hard to predict when your date will become current, but you should keep a close eye on that, on your visa bulletin, really. And then once you see the visa bulletin is current, then you should contact the consulate in case you don't get a letter from them.
Mhm.
Um, but they should be sending you a letter for um, an interview. And if you've changed your address, please make sure you update that at the consulate. Otherwise, you may not get the letter, and then all this might be a waste then, because you'll have to refile again.
Yes. Thank you, MB, and thank you so much, Prashanti, for taking it up. Well, I think this next question is going to help out folks out there who are, whose dates have become current now. So, the practical next steps for current priority dates, for applicants whose priority dates are now current, what are the essential steps they should take to ensure timely submission of their applications? Prashanti, any tips?
Yes, so if your priority dates are now current, obviously you should file immediately. Uh, uh, but it's important to file immediately also because your child may be aging out, so you want to make sure that you're able to freeze the age of the child. So that's one consideration. So don't delay. Also, if you're outside the country, then I suggest coming back into the country if you're able to, and then filing from here because it's easier. You can file a 485. If you're outside the country, you'll have to file an immigrant visa petition. And that again adds to the processing time because they take much longer at the consulate to schedule an interview, and this takes forever. Um, so file immediately. If your priority date is close, then I would say gather documentation. Don't wait until the priority date to gather all your documentation. Most importantly, make sure your passport is updated and is not expired. Make sure you have a birth certificate. And if you don't, then make sure you go, especially if you're an Indian national, that you are able to get a non-availability certificate from your city of origin, wherever your city of birth or
Mm-hmm.
state of birth, saying that your birth was never registered. Get
Okay.
affidavits, secondary evidence of your birth. So affidavits from people who know you, who were present at your birth, that
Mm-hmm.
you were born on certain day, blah blah blah, and other details. These have to be notarized affidavits.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and other secondary evidence such as school leaving certificate, which shows your
Yes.
date of birth and name of your parents, etc. So make sure you have all these documents ready. Identify your where you're going to get your medicals done. I wouldn't actually do the medicals because then the medicals might expire and you might have to do it again because they're
Mm-hmm.
only good for a year. So I would wait until the dates become current, and then you should be able to get the medicals done in a few days. You just identify the place that you want to get it done. Usually, the priority dates remain current for a few months, but sometimes they may not. They may just be current for that 1 month. So you might be, or you because you might be current based on dates for filing and not final action dates. So it becomes very important to look at your priority date every month. Look at the visa bulletin because the priority dates are issued within the first week of the previous month. So you have that month to file. I mean to prepare, and then of course you have the following month. So you have about a month to 6 weeks to file your application. So keep a close eye on the visa bulletin. You never know.
Yes.
Um, Also identify the attorney that you want to use. I would suggest not to file it on your own. Too much at
Yes.
stake, and the forms are more and more complicated every day. The fees, the places to file, they've just made everything very complicated. So identify the attorney that you will be working with. Make sure that they have availability because often this has to be filed uh, with very little time, right? So 6 weeks is not that much time to file a adjustment of status application because it's very time consuming. So make sure there's availability. Um, and keep all your other documents ready as well. Um, be aware of what is the fees. Make sure you have the fees ready. So these are a few tips that I have for those who the dates who are now current. You have to immediately file. So make sure you file correctly. For those who are already current, make sure you file correctly. 485. Use proper counsel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Make sure you're sending out the right checks. Send it out to the right address. And all this, make sure you if you're even if you're using an attorney, make sure you go through the application with your attorney. Make sure your attorney has not made any mistakes with reference to date of birth, addresses, how you spell your name. You have to look at that very closely to make sure no mistakes are being made.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prashanti. Those were great tips. So, folks out there, lucky you, your dates are current. Get going. All the best. All right, and let's quickly take up a few more. Akshay has
Uh,
something more to say.
sorry, Nipasa, I have to go because I have a 1 o'clock appointment today.
Oh,
So
all right.
we'll have to stop
Cut
on
short.
time. Cut short, stop on time.
All right then. Thank you so much, Prashanti. It was great, but maybe to wrap up, if you could just maybe give out something, maybe if you have any advices for China and Mexico people too, and then an end note to wrap up our show today would be great before we go.
Sure. Instead, do you want to just you want me to answer a quick question? I think maybe
Okay.
if you have another
Uh,
one, I will quickly answer another question.
okay, Akshay, that's what I meant. What I would want to do in future, file for EB1 through NIW while on F1.
Okay.
Does that then be no problem at CBP?
When you're on F1, yes, if you have an I-140 approval, as we already answered this question, there could be a problem at CBP. So I would suggest that you don't travel
Okay.
once you've actually filed the I-140 until you file adjustment or you
Okay.
change to a H1.
All right. Well, MP, I heard there is no more expiry on medicals. Is it true? I don't think so.
They're still asking for medicals if they're more than a year old because they want to make sure that you're updated with all your vaccinations, especially your COVID vaccine.
Yes. All right, then. Thank you so much. The biochemistry says thank you. And then Keval says, how do I understand the visa bulletin? Keval, we took up this as the first question in today's webinar. So you could, watch it even after the stream has ended. This video is going to be there. So do watch this whole episode once again. Thank you, Keval. And thank you so much, Attorney Prashanthi Reddy. It was really lovely having you. I wish we could go on and on because still have so many questions, but I understand you need to leave. So thank you once again. Thank you for sharing your expertise and helping us unpack the complexities of the bulletin.
Thank you. Thank you. It's pleasure being here. And maybe we can continue, answering the questions next week,
Yes.
if that's possible. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So I would say that only folks out there, you can keep commenting because this video is going to be there even after the stream has ended. And we will take up your questions, but I think we will have to let Attorney Prashanthi Reddy go now. But her details are on the screen. You can even contact her on this number, 212-354-1010. And you can email her about yourself, prashanthi@reddyesq.com, and go visit www.reddyesq.com to get to know more about Attorney Prashanthi Reddy. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's discussion on the November Visa Bulletin and for participating as well with your questions. Keep commenting, and if you resonated, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon so that you will be notified whenever we have amazing discussions like these. So, thank you once again, you all out there. Have a great day ahead, and thank you, Prashanthi. See you again
Thank
in the
you.
next.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.